YouTube says I am live. Greetings, everyone. Gordon Causey, aka Gordy Canuck, coming to you live from Northumberland County, Eastern Ontario, about 2 hours east of the big smoke, Toronto. And wanted to talk to you about the news that just dropped this evening. In today's COVID world, news can change daily, hourly. And that happened here back in November. Canadians were told that starting on January 15th, which is this Saturday, I'd been told that US truckers coming into Canada would have to be fully jabbed with one of the jabs approved or authorized by Health Canada, or they would not be able to enter Canada. That was decided way back in November. I think it was November the 19th that directive came down. I was aware of it. I know in talking to people, a lot of people weren't aware of the fact that this coming Saturday, that American truckers coming into Canada would have to be fully jabbed or they wouldn't be able to cross the border. And this has huge implications. Then on Wednesday, yesterday, it was announced by the Canadian Border Services Agency, CBSA, that that directive was being shelved, at least temporarily, that this requirement was not going to be mandated, that they would continue to allow unjabbed truckers coming from the United States into Canada, they would allow them in. That was on Wednesday. About 24 hours later, word came down that no, the CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency, had spoken or given out their direction in error. That is not true. That, yes, in point of fact, starting on January 15th, that any truckers coming in will indeed have to show proof that they're fully jabbed, or they will be barred entry. Now, the question is, what implications does this have? Is it business as usual? I don't think so. It's not business as usual. Canada has a very significant trade deficit with the United States, meaning we bring far more goods in than we ship down to the United States. And especially during the wintertime, when we're talking about food, in particular produce, much of it comes across the border by truck. And my fear is what we're going to see. We've already seen it happening already on grocery shelves. Certain items have been in short supply. It hasn't been catastrophic, not even anything close. It's been a minor inconvenience. You might find soda crackers, they don't have any. For a while, there was a shortage of aluminum. And so soda pop companies, Coca-Cola and such, those supplies were constrained, but you could always fill your grocery cart. Now things have gotten a little bit worse in the preceding 2-3 weeks, I've noticed, and it's been reported on by media, and the blame has been put on the Omicron variant, which is resulting in substantial levels of absenteeism. People unable or prohibited from coming into work has constrained things. And so suppliers haven't had as much to supply. And trucking companies have not had the drivers that they normally have. Even before COVID came along, there was a shortage of truck drivers. And now that situation is looking like it's going to be exacerbated by the fact that American truck drivers coming into Canada, there will be less of them available. I'm not exactly sure of the number. I believe it's somewhere in the 15 to 20,000 US truckers who will be barred from entering the country. Are we going to see shortages, more significant shortages in the grocery stores? I think that's entirely possible. Before Wednesday, I had already been planning to do an extra shop this week. I did some shopping on Monday and I said, oh, I'll go out again on Wednesday. And then Wednesday, the news dropped that Canada was shelving this mandate, this requirement, at least temporarily. And I relaxed. I was like, finally, common sense is prevailing. But as it turns out, the CBSA is said to have now spoken in error. I'll read you the article right out of CBC News. Clarification comes day after government spokesperson mistakenly said Canadian truckers would be exempt. This is from CBC article, which just came out this evening, posted January 12th, 2022 at 10:20 p.m. And so here we go. All truck drivers crossing the border must be fully jabbed as of Saturday, regardless of whether they are Canadian citizens or foreign nationals, the federal government said Thursday. Confusion over the controversial policy has been widespread since the federal government first announced in mid-November that by January 15th, all foreign nationals working as truckers would have to be fully jabbed to enter Canada. The same announcement said unjabbed Canadian truckers would be allowed in, but would be subject to quarantine and testing requirements. Could not, my editorial comment, I don't think you would be allowed to deny a Canadian citizen entry into his or her own country. So going back to the article, on Wednesday, a spokesman for the Canada Border Services Agency said the federal government was backing down from that commitment and would allow Canadian truckers to enter the country without having to quarantine, even if they were unjabbed or had received only one jab. Today, the federal government walked back that statement, saying that Wednesday's statement was provided in error and that regulations outlined in November will stand. Now, it's not just food. In logistics, which is warehousing, transport, the supply chain, fancy word for the supply chain, logistics, there's something called just-in-time delivery, where many industries, they just simply call up a warehouse and a small firm will come and pick something up and deliver it to you. Well, and it can be all manner of things. It can be tires for your car. It can be goodness knows what. It can be technical parts for diagnostic equipment in a hospital. And things are freaky. Things are scary. A lot of unknowns out there. And as I've written in the description, now COVID seems to take preeminence over anything. Over every aspect of society is subordinate to all things COVID. And the narrative is that, COVID has to have number one top priority and we have to forget about everything else. I don't agree with this, obviously. We're destroying our economy. We're destroying our society. We're destroying the mental health of our children. But it's all under the guise that, well, we have to do these things. We have to, because COVID is the greater concern. So what's going to happen come Saturday is, I don't think the problem, if this does cause a problem, now to be fair, from some experts, some government spokespeople are saying that Canadians need not be overly concerned. While there may be some shortages, things should not be that bad, and that there shouldn't be panic buying. You should only buy that which you need. You should shop frequently, once a week, a couple times a week, get what you need for the next few days, and don't concern with stockpiling up on things. We saw what happened, though, at the beginning of this insanity back in March of 2020, when the big item was toilet paper. People started loading up on toilet paper. Um, as this news takes hold, if the grocery shelves become less stocked, I can certainly envision the potential for people to be concerned, and it's human nature to start loading up on things. And more as concerning as just the simple grocery store is other items, pharmaceutical, drugs. Most of our drugs come from the United States. Our pharmacy is going to start running out of medications because not all our medications are produced in this country. What other supplies are we going to need? I mentioned, equipment in hospitals. Something breaks down, a diode, or I don't know, a transistor. Are these things that we have, or are these things coming? If they are things coming across the border, and we're already constrained by the number of people who are, we have more cases of more infections now of COVID than we ever have, more than in 2020. Things are in Ontario and Quebec and much of Canada, things are worse now than they have ever been. I don't know how that's possible. When we were told that once we got to 70-80%, that things would be back to normal, 70 to 80% of the eligible population being jabbed, now things are worse than what they were before. And now we have more people calling in sick, unable to work, which impacts the ability of producers to produce their product. It's already impacting the transportation industry, the trucking industry, and their ability to get products from the manufacturers to the warehouses, and from the warehouses to the stores or the end users. And we're adding in another constraint. So, am I suggesting anything? No. I mean, but it is a concern. I don't want to be Chicken Little. But this all strikes me as being 100% totally part of this great reset agenda. And if you're unfamiliar with that, you can go on here, you can go on YouTube, and you can type in Great Reset, World Economic Forum. Hear Klaus Schwab and others talk about the need for stakeholder capitalism, how our consumeristic Western world is not sustainable. This is another big buzzword coming out of what I'll call the globalist camp. We need to embark on sustainable development. And because our old system, we're being told, whether you agree or not, doesn't matter. You're not being asked for an opinion. There's no discussion going on. We are being told that our way of life pre-2020 was not sustainable. And so, in my view, we are being marched toward a path of sustainable development, which means getting rid of our old consumeristic-based model. Many have heard about the social credit system, which exists in another part of the world, where basically a person's behavior determines their rights and privileges within the society. There'll be a large outdoor concert, like a rave, and young people will want to go, but they won't be allowed to go unless their social credit score is high enough. And this is done by how, did you come into work on time every day? Were you late a couple times? If you're on time all the time, your social credit score is higher. If you're late several times over a course of weeks or months, then your social credit score is lower. It's similar in fashion to the system we have now. You could say that Western economies have a social credit system. The social credit system is monetary. The more money you accumulate, the more things you can do in the society. The more you can travel, the more you can purchase, the more you can engage in. Now, with a social credit system, rather than money being the driver, it's behavior. Are you being a good little boy or a good little girl and doing as you're told? If you do, we'll throw you a bone every now and again. If you don't, we'll take those privileges away. It's a less of a rights-based system that we're used to in the Western world, and it's more of a dictatorial system where you don't have rights, you have privileges, and those privileges are based on arbitrary measures set out by government, perhaps government in tandem with the corporate sector will determine what the parameters are, what will elevate your social credit score, what will lower your social credit score. So not a very uplifting message, sorry, but reality is reality. I'm going to leave it at that. If you want to put some comments up, you're more than welcome. If you want to like and share, you're more than welcome to do that. I wanted to find a way to tie my faith into this, my Christian faith, because I know it's not popular now. I know that, and it's disconcerting that at the very basis of Canadian and basically much of the Western world is a Judeo-Christian ethic, a biblical ethic, an ethic that's based on the idea, the notion that there are ultimate rights and ultimate wrongs, and that there are inalienable or unalienable. I've heard it said both ways, and I've seen it written both ways. Rights, and those rights emanate from God. But if you eliminate God, then you eliminate those inalienable, that's the way I prefer to say it. You eliminate those inalienable rights. Rights are no longer fixed. There is no absolute truth anymore. Truth becomes subjective rather than objective. Only through God do we have objective truth. Only through God do we have integrity. Through God do we have honesty. And now, with everything being subjective, the ground is constantly shifting. And we're seeing that in today's world. We have moved, and this hasn't started since 2020. This has been going on for decades. It's been going on my whole life, and I'm in my 50s. I was born in the 1960s. And it probably started before then, but it's certainly been going on my entire lifetime. The family unit has changed. Divorce is now rampant. Value on human life. We now accept euthanasia, abortion on demand. During this entire 2-year span, many people have had life-saving cancer screening that has been indefinitely delayed or delayed for months. And any oncologist will tell you that the biggest tool in the box when it comes to surviving cancer is early diagnosis. Catch it early and we can act. We can perhaps do a lumpectomy or other type of procedure. But if early detection doesn't happen, then what happens when it's found too late? The patient is told, we're sorry, it's progressed too far, it's reached your lymphatic system, you're riddled with it, and there's nothing we can do. We'll make you as comfortable as we can. If we caught it earlier, we might have been able to do something, but unfortunately, it's progressed too far. And yet, at the beginning of this the past 2 years, that was one of the first things that got canceled was cancer screenings. Cardiac surgery. I read a heartbreaking story about a Calgary concert musician. I think he was a violinist, doesn't matter what instrument he played. The gentleman passed away. He needed a cardiac procedure. None of the hospitals in Alberta would perform it because they were under strict COVID protocols that precluded doing any surgery of that type. Everything was about COVID. So he died. And he was a young man in his 40s with 2 young daughters. It's heartbreaking. And likewise, during this entire pandemic, Well, we've canceled life-saving cancer screening, life-saving cardiac surgeries, and other procedures. Abortion has never once ever been declared not essential. It's always been essential during the entire 2-year period. So we can end and call it a life, call it a potential life, call it whatever you want. But it's essential in today's world. But saving someone's life from cancer or from a heart issue was not. It's the same with the liquor store. The liquor stores in Canada have always been declared essential, in the weed dispensaries. But someone with a hair salon, someone with a fitness center or gym or dance studio, no, those are not essential. McDonald's drive-through, of course, absolutely essential. And now we may be looking at, I think in the weeks to come, maybe as soon as next week, that we're going to be going into the grocery stores. And are things going to be readily available? I don't know. Leave you with that. God bless. Keep well. Look after your mental health. Be around people. It's essential. It does so much for your mental, your spiritual, your physical well-being. Mental health and physical health are not contrary, and they're not mutually exclusive. One does affect the other. When you're in poor physical health, it affects your mental health. And when your mental health isn't good, it affects your physical health as well. So, big drivers, get enough sleep, manage your stress, eat well, get some exercise. And a great way to look after your mental health is to get around people. So, I'm going to end it there. If I can find the end stream button. Bye, everyone.